अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां नारायणसमारम्भाम् आचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां नाहं कर्ता हरिकर्ता तत्पूजाकर्मचाकिलं यद्यत् कर्म करोमि तत्तदखिलं शम्भो तवाराधनम्। ओम नमो भगवते शिवानंदाय, ओम नमो भगवते चिदानंदाय, ओम नमो भगवते कृष्णानंदाय, ओम नमः शिवाय, ओम नमो नारायण। Very happy to have Darshana of the spiritual aspirants sitting in this sacred place. Aspiration is one of the greatest virtues, one of the greatest prerequisites, for attaining the knowledge of the highest and the reality. We are all equipped with that. Yesterday we were talking about three main scriptures of the Sanatana Dharma, which is called as Prasthanatrayī, in terms of Upanishada, which is the end part of the Vedas, Brahma Sutra, which was again composed by Ved Vyasa, trying to reconcile the apparent differences, which we are looking or which happen to us when we study Upanishada. And the third thing is Bhagavad Gita, which happens to be in the Bhishma Parva of Mahabharata. Upanishada talks about the realities, the highest truth of life, the subtle truths of life, and Bhagavad Gita helps us translating those absolute truths in a way which will live accordingly. You can live accordingly. So it's a practical translation, a practical transformation of the highest truths which are enunciated in the Upanishads. And they say Bhagavad Gita is complete in itself, because that is the essence of the Upanishads. So Gita Sugita Kartavya, Kimini Shastra Vistarahi, they say that if we can study Bhagavad Gita, and if we do not have the opportunity of studying other scriptures, there is no problem. That will take care of everything. That's the beauty, that's the depth of Bhagavad Gita. And that is why all the great Mahapurushas, including Swami Shivananda Maharaj, have advocated that at least 2 or 3 verses in a day we should try to study, and we should try to learn it by heart. Yesterday you also said, that there is also need of a spiritually enlightened Guru, because these are very subtle truths and they cannot be grasped in entirety by our own self. So that is why we need to take recourse to the various texts and commentaries in Bhagavad Gita. There is a very great commentary on Karma Rahasya by Balagangadhar Tirak, those who are specifically interested in Karma Yoga. Then Sridhar Swami has got very good commentary for those people who want to practice more Bhakti Yoga. And commentary like Adi Shankaracharya and his followers, Swami Chinmayananda, Swami Shivanji Maharaj, for those who are particularly inclined for Jnana Yoga. In a way, they are not completely different yogas. They call Bhagavad Gita as Samanvaya Yoga, yoga of synthesis or the integral yoga. Everything is incorporated. And that is we'll try to see as we gradually go into the subject. Before we open up the subject again, let us see the metaphor, that the Upanishads and all those truths were told to the disciples in the caves in the mountains. But the Bhagavad Gita message was delivered on a battlefield. So it very specifically means, that this message is meant for living in our daily, day-to-day worldly life. So if you look at the metaphor, the whole world is a battlefield. Although it should not be like that. We want there should be peace everywhere, there should be peace everywhere. But we see even in geographical sense today also, different countries, they are quarreling and quarreling. I remember, by the end of this particular century, it was said that, that there has to be peace in this universe. In the 21st century, there is no need for war, there is no need for quarrel. But what we see today is completely opposite of that. So the whole world is basically a battlefield. Within that battlefield, Kurukshetra, where is Kurukshetra? It is our inner self, Antakarana. Quarrels outside are one thing, but the most important quarrel with which we have to deal with is within ourselves. And that's called Antakarana. The kind of differences, the kind of anomalies which we have, that is the most difficult thing to deal with. So that is Antakarana is Kurukshetra. Then we see there are two entities in this chariot which is very popularly seen. Right? We can see Arjuna also sitting in the chariot. And then we see Lord Krishna as the charioteer. So one gentleman is the individual and other figure is Ishvara or the Paramatma. Now, very important point to think is, are there two different entities? When we say God is residing within us, and we see Arjuna also and Krishna also, and you know that Krishna is, we use two words today, what is called Arjuna disease and Krishna therapy. The two words which we are going to use today. That one gentleman is a diseased person, other person delivering therapy. So are they two different persons? Within us, where are we and where is God? If you ask like that. So are there two persons actually? What do you think? When you see the chariot, you see this Krishna and you see Arjuna also. And Mundaka Upanishad also you see the two birds are there, right, talking to each other. And they say one is Jiva, one is Ishvara. So are they two different entities? Apparently yes, but not in the ultimate essence. Why? When we say that the Paramatman resides everywhere, and more particularly Ishwari Sarvabhutana, Hrideshe Ishtatrese, that in the heart of every individual Paramatma resides, then who are we? Are we different from that Paramatman that we are seeing is within the heart like that? Then they say, and that is how it can be explained, that we are no different from that supreme reality which is residing within our heart as Antaryami. We call him as Antaryami. But then who are we? And who is talking to whom? Then we need to understand. And let us see that on one side there is a self of the Atman, on the other side there is a non-self or what is called Anatman. Anatma has come from the Atma, and that Anatma basically we say is comprising of this body, mind, intellect apparatus. We call it Sthula Sharira, gross body. We call it Sukshma Sharira, Dharan Sharira. So we are not gross body. We are not subtle body. We are not causal body also. Dharan Sharira, which we experience during the sleep state and also in the waking state. When we get complete pleasure, as oneness. So we are not Dharan Sharira also. And then Paramatma Antaryami is within the heart, then we are, who are we? That's a question many times we need to ask ourselves, you know. But then you say that you're not this body, not this mind, immortal self you are, immortal Atman, so negating is the body, negating is the mind, negating is an intellect, and Paramatma is residing within our heart. When we say, then who are we? Where do we exist? Because we also think we have limitations. And that is why this scripture, that is why this message addressed. So they say that the Antaryamin or the Ishvara, which is residing in the innermost core of our heart, is none other than our own self. It is not a different entity. But the same Ishvara, who is there in the center of our heart. Even physical heart, not just biological heart. There's no need of spiritual heart separately. You know, it gets manifested through these equipments of body, mind, and intellect. So that Ishvara is Nirguna Nirakara, Avyakta. But for its own reason, it gets manifested, Vyakta. And it gets manifested through the upadhis, body, mind, and intellect. And when the Antakarana Shuddha is pure, it gets reflected into it. So, what is called as a reflected consciousness. This is the word in Vedanta which we use. It is called as a reflected consciousness. That is called as Chidabhasa. Also called as Chidabhasa. So that Paramatman which is there in the center of our heart, rather it is our own self, you know, true self, which gets manifested into Antakarana, that man buddhi. And that reflected consciousness is called Jiva. That reflected consciousness is called Chidabhasa. And that is what we think we are. That is what we believe we are. And that is why all the problems. So Paramatman has no problem. Subtle body, causal body has no problem. Who is the problem? The problem has Jiva. And that is the reflected consciousness. It is called as Chidabhasa. But that is the Jiva. So when we see the chariot, these two entities, that the Paramatman, is Ishvara, and the reflected consciousness, Jiva is there. That is basically what we are. And the problems that we have is to us. And why like that? That is because that reflected consciousness forgets its true nature and identifies itself with the body, with the mind, with the intellect. And it assumes the characteristics, the traits of these bodies. And it thinks, I am a body, I have to die someday. It thinks like a mind, I am happy, I am unhappy. It thinks like an intellect, I am enlightened, I am dull. So the reflected consciousness, which is called as Chidabhasa, Chidakasha or Jiva, and that is what we think we are. Right? We are in that sense because we assume that. But if we let us say that if we can dissociate ourselves from these adjuncts, not that we completely physically get away, but even in the presence of them, if we can feel we are different from that, we are the soul in essence, then these two entities do not exist. Then that Atman, the Paramatman, the indweller is the only reality, and that is what we are in essence. That is the essence of not just Bhagavad Gita, essence of what Upanishads. That's what they call as Tattvam Asi. In a very simplistic way, if you want to understand, that if there is a pot of water here, correct? And if the sun is there, the sun gets reflected. The sun is the reality, that is the Atman, that's the self, the Brahman. And the image what we see in the water is Jiva, is a reflected consciousness. And because there are many upadhis, there are many jivas. We see many reflected consciousness, we see many images. But in essence, the reality is one. So even when we see these two dualities, Krishna and Arjuna, one is the Ishvara and one is the Jiva, and that is what we believe in our lifetime. We live in that particular belief, but we must understand that the Jiva that is represented in form of Arjuna is none other than that Ishvara in essence, only because it is assumed a false identity. All the problems are because of the false identity. So when we shake up the false assumptions that we have upon ourselves and identify ourselves as the Atman, then all the problems vanish. Because suppose the water dries away, then there is no image in the pot. What remains is only Bimba. What remains is only Bimba. Pratibimba will go away. Pratibimba are many, Jivas are many, but Bimba or the Supreme Reality is one and non-dual. And that is what we yesterday discussed as priori therapy, direct jnana therapy. If we just complete the metaphor here, we discussed about who is Arjuna and who is Krishna, one is Jiva and one is Ishvara, like that. Then this, our body, physical body can be taken as a chariot. And then what are the horses? The organs of knowledge, Jnanendriya. Because they receive different impulses. The Vishaldi Jnanendriyas, where get the knowledge from where? The first Jnanendriya is Shrotrendriya, right? That is Shabda. Then Sparshendriya. Then Sabda Sparsha Rupa, that is Chakshurendriya. Rasa, that is Jiva. And Gandha, that is Jnanendriya. So these senses of organs of knowledge, they are the horses. And who are the enemies? Mind and its modification. So in terms of egoism, let us leave egoism, lust, greed, anger, hatred and jealousy, what we call, all various enemies are there. Now the same metaphor is given in Kathopanishad also. If we cite it differently also, correct? So what does it say? Same thing, body is a chariot and the organs of knowledge is called Jnanendriya. Right? There are Jnanendriya and Karmendriya. Right? I think everybody knows Jnanendriya and Karmendriya, 5 actions of knowledge, 5 actions of action. They are not the physical organs, So when you say the eyes, that is all Jnanendriya. This is only the place, Golak as they call it in Sanskrit, where Chakshurendriya resides. So the power of seeing is Chakshurendriya, not this physical eye. The power of hearing is Shrotrendriya. This is only a physical place where Indriyas live. Right? So that is why the Indriyas, or this senses of organs of knowledge and action, they is a part of Sukshma Sharira. They are not a part of the gross body. Now here also we see this body, we also see these horses, and then a reed, what we call in Gujarati Hindi is laga. What is that? That is a mind. So it's the mind is able to control, or mind should be able to control the organs of knowledge. The Jnanendriya should be under the control of mind. But that is, mind is the reins. And who is the charioteer? Who controls the reins? That is the buddhi of the intellect. So that is why in Sanskrit also they say that we have got two minds. When we say reins is the mind, and the one who holds charioteer is the buddhi, we call it intellect. Atmatam Girija, that's what we say, correct? In the sloka. So there are two kinds of minds, as they say in Sanskrit also. One is called objective mind, and one is called subjective mind. So objective mind is manasa. Objective mind is called manasa. And subjective mind is what is called as buddhi. In Sanskrit what we call. So one buddhi, ahankar, what we call antakarana chatushtya also, can be expressed like this, The objective mind is manasa, and subjective mind is buddhi. So objective mind, makes various ups and downs, ifs and buts, this or that, like that. And it is the objective mind which receives the impulses and knowledge, objective knowledge from the world. And then it passes on to subjective mind, which is buddhi, which makes a decision. That's a determining faculty. Now, as we see further, in fact, I would like to speak later, but one point has come, I'll say right now, that when the objective mind gains the knowledge of the world, the objective knowledge, it is passed on to buddhi, which is subjective knowledge. If it is passed on as such, the way it is received by buddhi, then there is no problem. But actually what happens is, objective mind and the subjective mind are not always compatible. Or that objective mind is not always under the influence or under the control of that subjective mind. Is called as a buddhi. And the Mahapurusha, especially Chinmaya Swamiji Maharaj, in his Bhagavad Gita, explained in depth with very good diagram also, that larger the distance between these two, greater the problems. And distance is in terms of what? Distance is in terms of unfulfilled desires. So ego-based, egocentric desires. So knowledge first comes to manasa, an objective mind. It passes on through these layers of desires because of the sanskaras which we have got from the previous birth. Then it is received by the buddhi. But before it reaches to the buddhi, it is colored by the various sanskaras, various egocentric desires what we have. And then it reaches to the buddhi. And buddhi is the one, what we call the subjective mind. There is a lot of vasanas inside that. So because of that, vasana means binding desire. Because of that vasanas, the true self is not getting properly reflected. So the entire essence of Bhagavad Gita, as Swamiji has explained, is that we should reduce the power and we should reduce the presence of vasanas and the unfulfilled desires in the subject, or in between these two minds, so that we are able to perceive the reality in the rightful manner. It's more of a little theoretical part, but that's what we have taken it like that, correct? Now we come back to the main subject, what we are discussing. That was in terms of the problems which, the disease which the Arjuna had, and the therapy which Krishna gave. Right? Now the disease what Arjuna had can be called as Arjuna disease. This is the language of Chinmaya Swamiji Maharaj. I have just gathered these words from his book. And the treatment that is meted out to him is called as Krishna therapy, like that. So what is this Arjuna disease? So Arjuna disease, as he says, basically when I was coming on the way, I was hearing some of the students talking about the real problem that we have is the mind. And the mind is the problem, cause of all the problem. Mind is solution also, correct? So they say that there is a psychological maladjustment or what is called as shattered mental equipoise. We lose the balance of our mind, intellect. We are unable to think rightly, perceive rightly. We are in a state of completely abject, broken down inner condition, what doctors and call as neurosis condition, neurotic they call it. But that is the kind of problem which he had. Now, just if we try to look little deeply, why this particular problem will happen? I think we are all studying Yoga Sutra also, correct? But there are 5 different kinds of klish also we have studied, correct? So, we recall them, which are they? Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesh, Abhidya. So, you are perfectly right. So, these are the kleshas, what they call, and no individual, including Arjuna, is free from that. The most fundamental is avidya. That's basically called as the ignorance. And ignorance cannot be seen by itself. Ajnana is anadi. But ajnana cannot be seen directly. Ajnana is seen through the effects of that. It is seen through the effects of that. So ajnana is seen through the karya. Ajnana cannot be seen like that. And ultimately ajnana leads to what? The fundamental problems which ajnana or the avidya leads are 2. One is delusion and one is grief. One is delusion and one is grief. So in Sanskrit or in Hindi, what shall we call? Moha and Shoka. Moha and Shoka. All the problems which we have, whether in our academic, whether in our social, any kind of life, can be attributed to this ajnana. And it happens as in form of delusion, it forms in form of grief. Now see, as yesterday I was talking, there are 2 types of knowledge. One is called as Aparavidya, one is called as Paravidya. Aparavidya is very large, very huge. And if you don't know everything about the world, everything about the arts and sciences of the world, there is going to be no major problem. You should know only what is required for you. Only required for leading a good life. But if you don't know geography, if you don't know astronomy, nothing is going to happen to you. But the Paravidya, or the knowledge of one's own self, if you do not know, that can lead to real problems in life. So here when they say avidya or the ajnana, it basically refers to avidya or ajnana of one's own swarupa. And the problem is not just that we do not know who we are. The problem is not that we do not know who we are. But the problem is we know ourselves to be something other than what we are. That's the basic problem. And that is what is called as perverted knowledge. That is called as a perverted knowledge. So no knowledge is okay. But the falsified or the wrong knowledge is the greater tragedy. And that is what is understood by the word asmita or the ahankara. So avidya is not directly seen. Avidya is reflected through various kleshas. And one of them is asmita or the ahankara. Ahankara in English is called as ego. Now, ego normally what we understand is superiority complex. I am better than him, I am better than like that. That kind of ego is not ahankara. That is also not, it's subtle of ahankara. But main ahankara is what? We identify ourselves with something which we are not. That is the basic problem, you know. And anyonya adhyas, the word they call. So I am not the body, but I assume myself to be body, and our consciousness is so deeply rooted in body consciousness that we can never think ourselves to be separate from the body till the body disintegrates. So this kind of adhyasa, thinking of myself as a body, and body is going to die, so I always have to fear that I am going to die, I am going to meet with this death. So identification with the body is a problem. More than that, body is gross, but the subtle elements are wider, more pervasive. So I am the prana. So, supposing I am thirsty, I am hungry, this kind of feelings come. Why it comes? Because of our identification with the prana. Because I think I am the prana, this thirst, hunger, everything keeps on bothering us. Then comes the mind and then comes the intellect, So that is where the major problem lies, And the entire problem, if you understand that the Arjuna was what is called as a neurosis or psychological breakdown, was because of his identification with the mind and because of his identification with the intellect. So that is what we also have these problems, there are so many different ideas, thoughts, imaginations which come happening in our mind. If we just become witness to that, then there will be no problem. They will come and they will pass away. They cannot simply exist. But because we understand them that we are this, I have got a good thought, I have got a bad thought, I have understood, I have not understood, then it creates a problem. So in case of Arjuna also, identifying himself with this mind, that was the major cause of problem. And why does it happen? Because we have got sanskaras of the previous birth. They always reside within our antakarana's chitta, and whenever any environment suitable to that comes, it gets reflected. That is one thing. And one more factor is also there. Whatever sanskaras we have gained from the previous or the current birth, so many things are added to it from the outside, if we don't receive it rightly. In case of Arjuna, it happened like that. That because, so many things were there inside him, he was going through a mental trauma. And the previous day, Dhritarashtra, he psychologically was very shrewd. And he sent, that Sanjaya to him and said so many things to Arjuna in a way which compounded his mental confusion and aggression. So already you have some suppressed emotion. So what was that? Previous birth forget, but in this birth also, so much injustice was cast to them at different point of time. But Yudhishthira always, had a feeling that no war at all cost, peace at all cost. So he was able to compromise. But that emotion was suppressed. But there was a long, long suppression of emotion for the last 12 years, even the 13th year also. And then again that message was given by Dhritarashtra, which also compounded his inner feeling. So a lot of ill-perceived thoughts are coming to you. And you have wrong notions, wrong ideas, wrong identification. And we identify ourselves with those ideas and we become unhappy, we become bitter, we become shoka. So that is the problem of psychological or a nervous breakdown. So not only spiritual, but you can't do anything normal also. Normally it happens when we have to go and speak in some public event or talk in a major, we say neurotic, the person becomes psychotic, Or even in cricket match also, you see last ball, very tense moments are there, they lose the control over the nerves. So the normal jobs in the world also we cannot do. In this age, we became conscious, that's the word we normally use. Right? Now here, because the wrong notions came to him, and because he identified himself with that, all the problems of nervous breakdown took place, and this can happen to you, me, and everybody. It happens continuously also. And that is why the major problem what we have, more than the physical illness, the problem of mental illness. And today that is why, psychologists, they have realized, that psychiatry is becoming a very important discipline in medicine also. That more than the physical elements, the psychological elements are playing a major part. And today only our Shastras were saying, but now the modern day doctors are also saying that if you are not able to take care of that mental faculties and mental tension, whatever they call, then the physical problems get aggravated. There is a word called psychosomatic disease. You must have known, correct? Because of the mental afflictions, you get the physical disease. If you are not well, body also will not. The effect of the body on the mind is less, but the effect of the mind on body is profound. And that was the problem, that not only the mind becomes weak, nervous, broken down, but a lot of wrong ideas, wrong notions, and that is what leads to shoka. So this moha and shoka. So moha is knowing something right, what is not right, and what is not right thinking is right. That is called as the moha, perceived or the ill-perceived understanding. And shoka is a deep feeling of suffering, despair like that. So that's the problem. Moha and shoka is a problem of mankind as a whole. And that is where we need some support. Now, what happens is, that in case of Arjuna, even if you talk a little further, beyond the Asmita, the Raga, Dvesha, and Abhinivesh is there. So, Raga here also comes there. Although Arjuna did not specifically have Raga, but he knew these are my relatives, these are my gurus, like that. Some kind of Raga is there. Practically he had not Dvesh. Suppressed emotion was some kind of Dvesh. And Abhinivesh is clinging to life, that we want to live longer and we want that our egocentric desires should persist. But these five kleshas, in one form or the other, they were bothering him. And that was the real cause, of the problem which he had. This is the little analytical part what we are discussing. Now comes the solution part, right? Now, in solution, what is the first thing? that we need to go, first of all, we have to identify that there is a problem. And then we have to seek the solution. Okay? So, yesterday also I used one word, that intelligent living, is seeking help. That whenever we feel that we have a problem, we have a disease, we should seek the help. In medical science it happens, that if we have some problems, and if we don't address it immediately, then again the problems get compounded. So we should go to a right person for that particular help. So this is the first step of curing the disease, that you have to identify somebody who can identify problems and who can solve it. Guru Vedanta Vakyesu Sattva Buddhi Avdharana Sashraddha. If we have the trust in the words of Guru, in the words of Vedanta, that's called a Shraddha. Likewise, here we have Shraddha in medical person also, and we go to him. So what happens that Arjuna, he is there with Krishna, but after describing his whole problems in the first chapter and the initial 12 verses of the second chapter, he recognizes that there is a problem, it needs a solution. So he talks to Bhagavana, that is the 7th verse of second chapter, which is very important verse actually. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha prachami tvam dharma sammura chetaha yachreya syan nisitam britanme sistetim sadimam tvam pratannam. So Karpanya, this sloka actually they say that even when we are facing any kind of a mental turmoil or any kind of a mental derangement, or kind of a suppression, what the people call anxiety, depression in today's terms also, right? In that case also this particular verse if it is recited, it gives a lot of inner strength. That is the saying of some great sages, So Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha. So Arjuna says Karpanya means I am weak, I am broken down, I am dejected, and then my condition is pitiable. So dharma sammura chetaha. I have lost the understanding, the recognition of what is right for me. But dharma is the righteousness, so duty for me. I say dharma sammura chetaha. Yat shreya syan nirsitam britanme. You please tell me what is right for me, what is good for me. Shishyasayam sadimam tvam prapanna. So he says that I am your disciple. Please guide me. Yesterday also we were discussing this, that Lord Krishna started giving help only when Arjuna became disciple. Now, little different thing, but interesting to know. There are different words are there. Suppose we come to the ashram. We say that I am the follower of Swami Shivananda Maharaj. You say I am the devotee of Swami Shivananda Maharaj. You say I am the disciple of Swami Shivananda Maharaj. Is there a difference in these words? If I say I am a follower, I am a well-wisher, I am a disciple, is there a difference in this? What is the highest according to you? I am a follower, I am a devotee, I am a well-wisher, I am a disciple. If I say these 4 words, which represents the highest state of submission? Disciple. Being a disciple is not ordinary thing, So Mahapurushas, when they give the message, they give 2 types of message. One is general message, which is called Sandesha, and that is for the whole humanity. We have read many Mahapurushas, I have also read so many Mahapurushas, and the message of them is Sandesha, that applies to mankind as a whole. But when it comes to discipleship, it is the highest state of submission. And for a disciple, every word, single word of Guru becomes an Agnya. It becomes an instruction. We cannot disown a single word. That is highest state of submission. It's called discipleship. So someday there was an instance on that, and somebody discussing that some teacher was asking a student, that this is your Guru. Then what do you think, how many percentage of his teaching you are following? And he said 90%. And the Guru said you have failed. So he was expecting that it praise me 90% means it's a big distinction. He said if you are a disciple, you have to be a 100% follower. There cannot be anything of a Guru which you can disown. That is, if we really want to become disciple of Lord Krishna also, everything that is stated has to be accepted by us. So because only when he took that discipleship, at that time, Lord Krishna came to his help. So this is one thing which we need to understand, that the Arjuna disease is there, and then he recognized this disease. In our life also, whenever we get the symptoms, we find something is not good, we seek help. If we suppress that, it transforms into a bigger tragedy, into a bigger problem. So first solution to the problem is identifying the right person. In this case, if I call a disease, is a doctor or a therapy. Right? It could be anyone. But in that case, he goes and then Bhagavan starts giving his message when he became a disciple. So unless and until we offer a complete sense of submission, the help will not be forthcoming in its full form. It may come in a small form, but not in the full form. So what is the first message that Bhagavan give? That is this 11th verse of second chapter. Ashocyananda Sodasatvam Pragnavanansya Bhasase Gatasana Gatasanasya Nanu Sochanti Panditaha. So what does it mean? That thou art grieving for something for which you should not grieve. And you are uttering the words of a wise man. You are speaking as if you are a very enlightened man, you are a very wise man. But you are doing something contrary to that. You are just grieving, for the persons for whom you should not grieve. Why? Because Bhagavan in a very simple way is going to understand that for what you have got the grief. When you say that these are the souls, the Drona is there, the Bhishma is there, in true sense, they have lived a pious life, and the true sense they are the Atman. The Atman we call eternal and infinite. Why these two words are used, eternal and infinite? So eternal is what transcends time. We are more understanding things in terms of time and space, right? Because the mind is conditioned like that whatever is in terms of time and space we understand. So what transcends time, Trikala Vitishtati, that is beyond time and space are the creation. They are part of the creation. But the Lord is beyond creation. So beyond that time is called as the eternal. And beyond the space is called as infinite, Ananta. So when you call Ishvara as this Shashvata and the Ananta, that is because it is beyond time and beyond space. So he said that you are grieving, but they are eternal. The soul never dies. And if you think in terms of this body, it is meant to disintegrate. It is meant to die. It is meant to... So it has got a limited life. Yesterday on the way also I was hearing somebody talking about Prarabdha Karma. So, they all come with the Prarabdha Karma. All the karmas which we have done in the previous birth is called Sanchit birth, Sanchit Karma, accumulated karma. Out of that small part we are experiencing in this life, it is called as a Prarabdha Karma. And whatever karmas we do, Agami Karma, that is going to get the results in the future. So Prarabdha Karma, we have all come with the Prarabdha Karma. You are sitting here, my coming here, you are taking, everything is a part of Prarabdha. But the Prarabdha is there, and that is why we have come. And everything that has come into being, Prarabdha, has got a limited life. At some point of time, it is going to vanish. So, he said, if you look at the body, or if you look at the relations of the people which we have also, they are also conditioned in time and space. They are also going to disintegrate, they are also going to end. So, why the grief? The grief has got no basis. Even if you look yourself as a soul, it is absolutely meaningless. There is no cause for it. If you identify yourself as a body, then also the body is supposed to die and decay. There is no justification for that. So either way, whether you take it as a soul or whether you take it as a body, in either case, there is no justification for shoka. So removing this grief or shoka is the central objective of Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarvapapyabhya moksha vishyami ma suchaha. Do not grieve. Yesterday also when I was talking there, that how can there be sorrow when bliss alone exists? This is the realization of the great sage, Siddhanta Swami Maharaj said. If you know yourself as the Atman, then there will be no cause for sorrow like that. So this is what the first thing is there, and Bhagavan identifies himself. So this is the, when you go to a doctor, he identifies the disease. So here, Bhagavan identified the disease, that you are suffering from a perverted mental understanding, perverted mental knowledge. What you think is not right. When you think that I am going to be the killer, once I go and I am killing them, you think you are the Karta, then they will experience that they are Bhokta. Neither you are Karta nor you are Bhokta. You are not doer, you are not experiencer. But because you have thought yourself to be mind, that is why this mental neurosis and neurotic condition has come. So Bhagavan confirms the diagnosis. Yes, it is mental degeneration mental equipoise is lost. And then he starts giving, this is the first message which he gives, that this is right and there is no need for you to do this today. Then yesterday as I said, that now the Krishna therapy happens. Now the Krishna therapy is what? In the words of Chinmaya Swamiji Maharaj, if I say, that is the scriptural treatment of the Vedic truths. That the disease is Ajnana, and of the Ajnana the problem has come. So the solution can come only from the right knowledge. So scriptural knowledge is a solution. And as we said yesterday, that there are two kinds of therapies which is possible. Therapy, if I say, there are different words. But in terms of Bhagavad Gita, as I say, realization of the two ways he said, one is priori and one is posterior. So what we said about priori was that you directly address the problem, disown the problem. Simply don't say problem exists like that. What you think is a problem is void, is not there. Just like Mirabai, we all talk about this Bhagavad Gita and Upanishad, everything, and then discuss about this Sansara Saga, how to overcome that. And then, Mirabai in a state of exalted realization says, Bhavasagar se sukha gaya, fikr nahi mujhe charana. You disown, there is no samsara, what is the problem? So that is one therapy. You disown the problem which is artificial. You disown the problem which is not real. If the problem is real, yes, you have to own up the problem and you have to find the solution. But the problem itself is non-existent. Problem is unreal. What is not a problem, you have taken as a problem. Then what is the solution? So one solution is priori therapy, which is called as a Jnana Yoga, which is called as the Vedanta way of approach. And as Swami Shivaji Maharaj has said, that here you directly take to the cause and then you go to the effect. That from that Atma, everything comes, the Shushti comes, but then Atma, this and that like that. But directly you meditate on yourself. You are not this body, not this mind. And Adi Shankara also, when his Guru first time asked, who are you? Then you say, Manobuddhi Hankara Chittani Naham. Nata Shrotru Devi, Nata Gnani, Nata Vyomu Bhumi, Tejo Navayu, Siddhananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So he disowns the whole other adjuncts. That is one way. But who can do it? When we have got a purified intellect. When we accumulated virtues of the previous birth. And then we are ready for direct recognition of that knowledge. Then this prior therapy works. It will not work in majority of the people's case. And that is why, but still Lord Krishna first thought of giving this. Because when you put your right, then they say, put your right step first. They say, correct? So first solution should be given right thing. Put your right foot first, that's in English also, correct? So likewise, in therapy also, as you know, that there are two types of therapy. One is intravenous therapy and one is other therapy. So whenever a person is diseased, when you have got a very serious infection, directly you give injection through the vein and it reaches in all the parts of the body and you get a quick relief. So the first solution which God thought was, he must know the truth in its entirety. He must know the truth in its original form, not covered truth. This is a bare truth, you must know this, that you are the Atman. And what is the Atman that described? And various verses are there, which all of you know, maybe we just will read them out. So that who are you who are the Atman, like that he said. And you disown all the various other adjuncts, that's called as the priori therapy. And even in case of Vedanta also, if you study, and they talk about the Atma Tattva, everything also, correct? But if you see in Vedanta also, first they talk about the non-self. Even in Vedanta they say directly address the Atman. But in all Vedanta books also, first we study what is Anatma. So then you study what is Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karan Sharira, and finally you disown them. So even in so-called prior therapy also, that you recognize the first the effect part, and from the effect you go to the cause. But still, for people who are very enlightened, the people have accumulated great punyas, they have got a great, this sankalpa within themselves, they can take this therapy. And at the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita also, the meditation is not yogic meditation, what we study in Yoga Sutra. It is a meditation on the self, And then there are various methods, maybe we'll try to see tomorrow. But the main thing, you try to concentrate on the self. That is the message that's called as the priori. And Swami Shivaji Maharaj said, that this is a very difficult path and not we will succeed in that, but still there is a value for that. You must know, even if you are not able to completely follow Jnana Yoga, you must know what the truth is, at least in theory, at least in principle. later on it will become part of a reality. So Lord Krishna, in the second chapter, after from the 11 to 38 slokas, he talks about the immortality of the Atman. So that is the direct message of the Jnana Yoga, the Atman or the self. And later on he turns to Karma Yoga, everything and explains it. That Karma Yoga and everything, that's a posterior method where you don't bother much about the cause, you think about the effect. One simple thing I can tell you, Swami Shivananda Maharaj always say, the goal of life is godization, like that. Right? And that is a primary method in that sense. And Chidananda Swamiji Maharaj in many of his addresses talking to common people like us, he has said, leave aside self-realization. Follow your sadhana properly, meticulously. He did not mean that self-realization is not an important goal. But he said it's too far for you to think like that. If you think about that, speak about that, without being in readiness for that, that's absolutely hollow. Very hollow word, doesn't mean anything. So he said, leave aside. Follow your sadhana. So here the same thing is there, the posterior method is there, that through the Karma Yoga, the Antarkarma is purified. And as I say, the innermost reality, the Bimba Atman, will get reflected rightly. And that is the way we get the knowledge. So Atma Jnana or knowledge is the ultimate solution. Jnana Devatam Devatam. The problem is ignorance. But either it may be done directly, as intravenous therapy we call, or starting with that in a little way and then following the other therapies. So gradually our inner conscience becomes purer, subtler, ready for the reception and the reflection of the light. For that part of that, some important slokas of the Jnana Yoga and the Karma Yoga, we'll try to see tomorrow. So may both this Nishtha, Jnana Nishtha and the Karma Nishtha, happen to us in our spiritual journey. That is our humble offering, supplication, and the spirit of Bhagavan and Gurudev. Hari Om.